Welcome back to poetry this evening. Used to be poetry today, but we've been bumped in favor of something to entertain retards. Probably some sort of reality contest. Anyway, with me to my left is a man you will surely recognize if you know anything about poetry. If you don't know anything about poetry, please change channel. I have no interest in you, and I see no interest for you to have any interest in me. So, it's Ulton McFartage.
Hello!
Yes. Ulton's one of those commoner poets that seem to be quite popular these days. Specialising in, I believe, Pachyderms sports.
Aye, that's right, Pachyderms sports. I've been working on trying to get elephants to communicate with humans through the medium of playground activities. It inspires me.
Well, it's fantastic to see somebody trying to do something for the stupid children of today.
Aye.
Yes, that's wonderful. So how do you go about doing this? How do you actually introduce an elephant to the world of the communication of the soul?
Well, when it comes to elephants, what you need to understand is, like, elephants, they take that to playground activities like Dr. Water. For example, if you were to point your finger at them and say, "Listen here, I'm gonna tell you how to skip, and you better listen. You got fucking big ears." Generally, I can understand you. You know, by your general demeanour or whatever.
And I should point out at this stage that generally you work with African elephants, which do in fact have larger ears.
Bigger ears
than their Indian brethren.
I can't be bothered my arse talking to aliens who don't even have the ears to listen.
It's a lot of nonsense about karma with those elephants as well.
Aye, you're working with an elephant for a while and suddenly it's reincarnated into something else and they have to teach it all over again.
And they have a terrible caste system.
They do, aye.
So tell us about the exact playground activities that you're working with these pachyderms on.
Well, I tell you, there's a poetic link, of course, because what I generally do is I try to bounce balls in the general direction and see what happens. You know, if it picks up a ball, well and good. If it didn't, fuck it. I can't really be arsed because I've only got a certain amount of time on this planet, and I'm going to try and gather as much inspiration from my natural surroundings as I can.
Brilliant.
So that's the way I roll.
Very fly-by-night approach to your profession, indeed. But tell me, you started writing poetry about this process somewhere in the middle of last year.
That's right, because I met this wee elephant. He was a small little guy, tiny. He was almost as big as a rabbit. As big as a fat rabbit. That has to be said. Rabbit who's let himself go, truth be told. And I had a great affection for him. Because when I looked at his wee trunk, I reminded him of my own penis. Because it was all shriveled up and useless. He couldn't do anything with it. He couldn't. I tried to get him to hold a skipping rope with it, and it was a nightmare. Just couldn't do it, and I felt really sorry for him, truth be told. And me and him, we got on like a house of fire. We set fire to a house, actually.
I did read about that in the papers.
Aye, it was a terrible incident with some Boy Scouts and running stones together or something, and it all went up in flames. And but at the same time, don't get me wrong, it was a glorious sight. There's something very primal about it, you know. We sitting with a small elephant the size of a rabbit looking at the fire.
Indeed. Indeed. That's the kind of imagery that's really missing from poetry. Who wasn't introduced to you the idea of writing a poem about it?
Well, it was my father. He used to bounce me on his knee, which I thought for a 30-year-old man was a bit excessive. But what happened was I fell off his knee, bumped my head, and suddenly I had a new part of my brain starting to engage. I started to look at the world. I saw colours that I'd never seen before. Then I realised I blacked out. It was,
common enough.
I was looking at the carpet at the time and I was very confused. But then the carpet was an Indian rug, you see, so that's what I got. I got interested in elephants generally. Then I found out those Indian elephants are wasters. So I just graduated to African elephants and skipping.
So the African elephant skipping, of course, won the Sally Jupiter Award.
That's right, Sally Jupiter. Hey.
Yeah, this is probably the lowest
That's what I like in a woman
prizes.
named after a planet. She's got her own orbit and everything. That woman.
Very charismatic.
I'd like to check out her moons.
Actually, no, I find that misogynist.
Well, you find out who you like.
Okay, now as is usual on this show, when we have an award-winning poet on, we have him recite his award-winning poem, except when he's Scottish, in which case we bring on a translator. I didn't want to use that word, but we have a fully trained actor on to use his vocal talents for the performance of The African Elephant and the Skipping Rope. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Mr. Kenneth Barnbrough.
The Elephant Skipper. I love animals, I love them all, I love every creature great and small, from the big lion to the humble worm, but I especially love the Pachyderm. I loved elephants all my life. I would even take an elephant for a wife, but I remember last year when I was having a beer and something happened. It was pretty weird. I met an elephant. He was a little fellow, the size of a rabbit. He was almost yellow. He was tiny. His trunk had no use. It was almost as if he suffered a lot of abuse, but he was a trier and I admire that in him, and even for taking him to the gym, he still remained thin and slim and he wasn't going to grow, and I said, oh, that's poor for him. But we decided we'd have some fun, and suddenly we realised what we'd done. We realised that we pushed it to the wire when we'd gone and set a house on fire. But I have to say, afterwards, listening to vinyl, I realised the experience was incredibly primal. It brought me and the elephant together, and we're together ever since, no matter what the weather. And I remember after that, I was with my dad. I was sitting on his knee talking to the lad, and I fell off and I banged my head, and for a second I thought I was dead. And after that I got inspiration. It was almost like heavens were opening above every nation, and I said to myself, I'm going to stay at home and I'm going to write the biggest poem about this elephant, and he means so much to me, so he's the one who makes me happy. Yeah!
I had a tear in my eye and I was so emotional I didn't even wipe it away, I just let it trickle slowly into my own mouth. I'm quite overcome with emotion.
And interestingly, Aidan, that's actually something that's happened to you before, isn't it? You've had that reaction to something before. I know this because you did write a poem about it.
I did.
Crying in my own mouth.
Crying in my mouth?
Yeah. When do we get Kenneth Aidan? Kenneth Barnbrough.
Crying in my mouth. I was an unhappy child. I was constantly getting beaten by my parents for not succeeding where I might. They said I was shite. They said I was a blight. And they beat me with all my might. And I would go to bed at night, turn off the light, with my internal demons fight, to try and put myself right. But it was still shite. I dreamt, moving from Scotland, heading south, as I lay there in my bedroom, crying in my mouth.
That moved me to my soul.
I know, it's
well, unfortunately we're out of time. If you just put your hands together, please, for Mr.